Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. That's my guy.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live on a Saturday afternoon. Apologies for interrupting your college football Saturday, but I, for one, needed the interruption to college football Saturday after the University of Utah absolutely laid a dud this morning on national television, so it's great. But here to preview the game against the Broncos tomorrow, where the Chargers will look to be 3-0 for the first time since 2002. So it's been a hot minute since that happened, and joining me to do that is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight? Or today? Of course, I have it there. Today, not tonight.
Yeah, it's tonight somewhere, right? I'm doing very well. I don't watch college football as it occurs live, so I don't know how some of you do it because you like heartbreak on Saturday, heartbreak on Sunday. I don't know how you guys do it, but you are more resilient and stronger than I am. Yeah,
I'm definitely way more irrational about Utah football too. Partly because the NFL is a way more even playing field. And so, in my head, I've just been spoiled with, the stretch of consistency. And so I just think Utah should win every single game. And sometimes that's just not a reasonable thing to ask of me like it was today. But, it's all good. It happens. The game ended early enough where I did a little Peloton ride, showered, and now I'm good to go. Flush that game. And now it's on to the Broncos tomorrow.
Love it. Love it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Who counsels the counselor? Who takes care of you? Hopefully your wife and your family and friends and everybody was able to take care of you after the loss.
Yeah, it would be very hypocritical if I counseled my students every single day to practice positive coping skills and de-stress and then not do the same thing because of a football team made up of a bunch of, 20-year-old kids lost today. So, just what it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So just real quick before we get into prize picks as well as this preview, Tyler is going to be at the game tomorrow, so definitely feel free to say hello to him and his family. But because of that, we will be going live for our recap after Sunday Night Football. So this is our usual schedule. Now that the Chargers are off primetime for a few weeks, we can kind of get back into our usual routine here. And so since Tyler is at the game tomorrow, we will be live after Sunday Night Football and then back on Tuesday and Thursday and just kind of, again, back into the normal rotation.
Yeah. I'm excited to be there. It's weird that it's not their first home opener, but it is their home opener, but not really because of the Brazil game. But no, this should be a good one. I'm glad I at least get to see one other division game at SoFi, even though the Chiefs one was robbed of me. Can you imagine being at SoFi for that game? If they had finally won a game at home against the Chiefs? I guess not.
Yeah, that would have been something else. Technically speaking, the Chargers have not had a home game at SoFi since August. So it's like the first week of August after the Hall of Fame game. So the Rams game was technically a Rams game, and then Chiefs game in Brazil. So it's been a hot minute since people have been able to get to SoFi for a Chargers home game. The people asking, Tyler, are you going to hit Thunder Alley? Are you going to pregame or what's kind of your routine there?
I will be hitting the team store because I know they've got some new stuff that's exclusive to SoFi. So I'll be there. I get paid in 10 days, so it's going on the credit card. No, I'm kidding. But I will definitely be purchasing a few things from the team store. I usually don't Thunder Alley. I'll go if no one's ever been before. Like I take my sister or I took Arjun when he turned 21. But no, I will not be going to Thunder Alley. I'll go with my parents and we'll be somewhere. Our seats are usually 231, but we sold because just my dad and I have 2 season tickets. We sold those so we could get 3 so my mom could go. So I actually don't know where we're sitting, but I'm guessing it's around 231.
Yeah, if you've never been to SoFi, definitely sit on that side of the stadium. Sitting on the other side is fine if you don't have a choice, obviously, but if you're sitting in like the 209, so opposite of Tyler where he usually sits, you are in the sun the whole time and you are baking and like it's covered, but it's glass. And so the first time Brooke and I actually went to a Chargers game and sat on that side, I got sunburned. Like I had to go, I had to go in, like anytime there was a break, I had to go like up and get in the shade. Like it gets hot on the opposite side. So Definitely recommend sitting closer towards the team store. You'll be more in the shade, and then you'll get access to the team store. And it is Hispanic Heritage Month, so they have a ton of exclusive Hispanic Heritage merchandise set up for tomorrow. And they always do this once a year, and it's a fun game. There's a lot of fun entertainment opportunities, merchandise, everything like that. So it's a fun.
Yeah, should be awesome. The media, stuff they've been putting out is already great. I don't know why they had to have Dan Henley sucking oxygen video, especially when he might be out tomorrow.
Yeah, he probably is going to be doing that tomorrow. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right. I mentioned them, but I have to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. This episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast and every episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Don't miss any of the excitement this season over at Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Obviously, we've talked about this, but the Justin Herbert rushing numbers continues to be low. I think the number for his passing touchdowns also continues to be low. So hopefully you're able to use those and cash in on the more or less than on Justin Herbert stats. If you think this is a big Ladd McConkey game or this is a big Keenan Allen game, Keenan Allen's numbers have also been pretty low too, for what it's worth. So some potentially like free money going on with Prize Picks and the Chargers as they kind of continue to catch up on the state of things with the Chargers offense. So best way to do that is to go over at whatever app store you use, download the app Prize Picks. Use the code GUILTY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that is code GUILTY, all caps, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, we'll jump into the preview. We'll take some questions at the end, as always, as we do. And Tyler, with a surprise to no one, has a great slideshow theme up for this week with the donkey instead of a Bronco.
It was 125 and I went, oh shoot, I don't have one. What can I do? Oh yeah, donkeys, done. So here we go. You're getting my 20-minute thrown together slideshow, but it's got heart, it's got some character.
Yeah, it does have some character. Also having some character is our guy Mark Braun in the chat with a birthday, turning 24. Happy birthday, Mark.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Hope family treats you well and you have a nice little celebration today. So hopefully the Chargers can give you a win tomorrow for that birthday present as well. So again, as always, we'll do offseason reviews for these teams as we are kind of more closer to the beginning of the offseason. Once we get into the actual season, we'll probably stop doing this particular show, but it's always good to have kind of a refresher of what these teams do. A lot of buzz out of Denver this week because Mr. J.K. Dobbins is back facing his former team. J.K. Dobbins, despite the fishing from the Broncos media, kept it very professional, was nothing but business. And I always enjoy that about J.K. Dobbins. He's always been very honest. But him and Evan Ingram, Dre Greenlaw are kind of your big main free agent additions. Evan Ingram and Dre Greenlaw are actually not going to play in this matchup. So Dre Greenlaw was placed on injured reserve due to a quad injury. Justin Strnad, Talanoa Hufanga, Sam Franklin Jr., wide receiver Trent Sherfield Jr. Are the other free agent additions. And then they did re-sign DJ Jones. They extended a lot of their free agents this offseason. Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, all these guys got big deals. I think Jonathan Cooper was early in the offseason as well. So busy season for offseason, I should say, for the Denver Broncos front office.
Yeah, they did a lot. They found that they have what they thought was their quarterback, and that's very TBD. I don't think you can say that right now, but they at least have a quarterback on a rookie deal that they feel good about. Therefore, you see moves like this to bring in some talent. And the outgoing wasn't all that much. They really retained it feels like 98% of the key parts of their roster and just added talent. So remains to be seen how much each of these guys will affect the Broncos overall. Like we'll talk about the linebackers, but not having Greenlaw has been tough for these Broncos. Not having Ingram, not the worst thing ever, but that is a piece that they were missing last year that they currently do not have or will not have out there on Sunday. So TBD on how all these moves will affect them. It's tough to talk about these moves when it's like hypothetical because we're not 100% sure what they're going to do, but you can tell they're missing the presence of what we think these guys could be.
Yeah, they traded Devon Vele, shout out Utah alum there, in part because they felt like Evan Ingram could essentially play that role. So the big slot receiver has been a thing in Sean Payton's offense forever. And they felt like it was going to be Vele, and then they signed Ingram. So now they thought it was him, and he's going to be out this week. So potentially something to monitor for sure this week for the Chargers.
Yes. Sorry, I was responding to a joke.
You're good. We'll get to the outgoing free agents. Tyler mentioned they were not necessarily super, relevant. Tremont Smith, I honestly don't even know who that is. Cody Barton,
Same.
you put that in a slideshow. I was like, I don't know who that is. Cody Barton, I do know who is because he's obviously another Utah player. The Broncos love Utah players, and it drives me nuts. He's in Tennessee now, having a good season for the Titans. Zach Wilson is in Miami, wearing number 0, which I cannot stand there, but it is what it is. Javonte Williams in Dallas. We loved Javonte Williams coming out of the draft. Did not necessarily work out in Denver, but he's leading the Cowboys in rushing right now. Punter Riley Dixon, wide receiver Lil Jordan Humphrey, and then I just mentioned the Devon Vele trade. So again, no big names, but definitely, I think you feel kind of the depth a little bit at wide receiver, linebacker, stuff like that.
Yeah, sorry, I did not know who Tremont Smith was either. I'm aware of Cody Barton. I couldn't tell you much. Zach Wilson, sure. Really, it was Javonte Williams was, I guess, the big outgoing one. But based on how he was with the Broncos, like that first year, like year and a half, pretty darn good. Like Javonte Williams that we saw at North Carolina, and then just never panned out. It's the loss didn't feel like a lot. Then you bring in Dobbins, you bring in Harvey in the draft, who we'll talk about. But then he goes to the Cowboys and kind of finds a second life. A lot of running backs just go to that second team and find that second life. And right now that's it for Javonte Williams. So they're not missing him, thankfully, for the Broncos, but it was a not so big departure that kind of is their biggest departure given how he's played in Dallas.
Yeah, no doubt. 2025 NFL draft class. Unfortunately, Jahdae Barron, the latest victim of plays the slot, so he's not good falling situation. Still annoyed at that. He's actually been playing some safety for them. So he is kind of doing the Brian Branch thing. We'll play slot safety a little bit. RJ Harvey, another one that at least you were upset. I didn't like him as much as you did, but I liked him, a good amount. So good pick there. Pat Bryant hasn't done a whole lot. But we'll see how that again continues without Evan Ingram. Savion Jones, Q Robinson, those are two players who I really liked, and I think the Broncos have just done a really good job of like replenishing the defensive line talent. They replaced Riley Dixon with Jeremy Crawshaw, the punter from Florida. I want to say Alex Katzen had him as the top punter in the draft.
I'm sure he did.
I like that name sounds familiar because I'm pretty sure Alex Katzen talked about him a decent amount. And then they took another Utah player, Caleb Lohner. They also have an undrafted free agent, Karene Reed from Utah. So again, the Utah theme continuing there, which is great. Caleb Lohner, a former Baylor Bears basketball player, turned football player at Utah, and now Sean Payton's trying to turn him into Jimmy Graham. So like for him, I hope that works out. For the Chargers' sake, I hope it doesn't work out like that.
Oh, I completely get that. This one hurts, man. Looking at this draft class, this is like I was ready to do the booty short twerk for Jahdae Barron if he had been there for the Chargers. Did not materialize, adding to an already great secondary. Harvey, of course, liked quite a bit. Pick 60 did feel a little early, but we'll see how involved he gets, but I think he'll be just fine there. Pat Bryant, I liked. You liked Jones and Robinson. I didn't watch either of those guys, but someone we had mentioned several times in mock drafts about in that range. So annoying that I think, at least the first 5 names that I'm more aware of, had a pretty good draft. Again, the AFC, we've done 3 AFC West team previews in a row, and all 3 really did, I think, have a really good draft.
Yeah, we kind of talked about edge rusher quite a bit during this draft, and so it's a little unfortunate that the Broncos took 2 players that could potentially, would have been, positive for the Chargers. Although Savion Jones is playing more for them, kind of as an interior guy. So neither of him or Robinson have really played a ton in the regular season, but both of them in the preseason flashed certainly more than Kyle Kennard did, which we will talk about later here in a second. But yeah, the Broncos, they haven't been like super high success rate overall with the draft, like 1 through 7, but it feels like they just like they're nailing like the first 2 rounds, and you're getting a lot of like good high-end players out of those first 2 rounds for them. So just something to monitor, obviously, going forward.
Yeah, I'd really like it if the Broncos didn't draft well. I mean, any team on the AFC West, that'd be great if they didn't draft well, but it just kind of feels like they have. I mean, even like I didn't love Troy Franklin, but now he's contributing too.
Yeah.
You found, I mean, they found Vele, and we liked him. You were aware of him, obviously, and I liked him enough, but they traded him for some value. So, yeah.
So no idea what the Saints are doing.
They're finding contributors. Well, it's helped so far, right?
Yeah, he did score a touchdown last week for them. But yeah, last year, they're getting good impacts this year from, their non-Bo Nix players, Jonah Ellis, Troy Franklin, all playing, key snaps. Chris Abram-Drain has had some moments. They cut Audric Estime, traded Devon Vele. So there's some hit or miss here, but now Marvin Mims, who we both really liked, is playing really well for them. And Riley Moss in the third round as a corner has played really good for them. Nick Bonito is a really good player. Oyama Awuzarike is a good player. So there are definitely some misses on here. Like they took Greg Dulcich in this third round in 2022, and he's bounced around. I think he's been on 3 other teams. But then 2021, you have Pat Surtain and Quinn Miners, who are awesome. So it's just, Jonathan Cooper as an edge rusher in the 7th round. Like there's like when the Broncos hit on a player, it feels like they really hit on a player, which is definitely the frustrating part.
Yeah, the Chargers have been a little more successful, I think, the last couple of years, but the Broncos hitting and getting at least 2 starters per draft, if not 3, is kind of where you want to be, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, let's get to this particular game preview. We'll start with the injury report. We noted after the game in our film review that Will Dissly did not necessarily look like himself, and he did not practice all week with a knee injury, got tackled awkwardly, and tried to gut it out, but it just was very clearly hindering him. So he is out this week. Based on the pictures from practice, it looks like Tucker Fisk has indeed kind of taken that role, which to me makes the most sense. I think he's somebody who should be active every game. So we'll see what happens with the other tight end spot. But Will Dissly is out, and so is Elijah Molden. So Jordan Schultz tweeted out that Elijah Molden, this is not considered a long-term hamstring injury. And obviously, I don't think the Chargers believe that either, because I think if it were the case, then he would be on injured reserve right now. But these hamstring injuries after a major surgery can be a little tricky and linger. So I would keep an eye on this one. They obviously signed Tony Jefferson to the active roster. I hope Elijah Molden is able to get out here soon, but he has not practiced since the injury in week 1. And he is out again this week.
If I'm not mistaken, did he have one limited practice and then it was just straight DNP after that?
So he got injured in practice.
Gotcha.
The first day of practice last Wednesday. So that's why it was limited, and then DNP out, and then DNP every day this week.
Yeah, that's a bummer. The good news is the Chargers can be patient. Not that Gilman was perfect last week, but he had some pretty good plays. So it's not like you have to rush him. Tony Jefferson was great. Mickens, if he plays a significant amount, I think we feel okay about that. So the good news is they can be patient, but it is a bummer. He is their second best safety overall, and I hope that he can get back out there. But this strikes me, considering there's kind of no movement on this front, this strikes me as, even if he's not on IR, short-term IR, this is a couple of weeks away from returning.
Yeah. We'll see about next week. But with these hamstring injuries, you generally like to see kind of a full week of practice before you play the players back. So if he made his return against the Commanders in week 5 instead of next week against the Giants, I would not be surprised there. Yeah.
Other thing, obviously, to add is we've sort of discussed it, but Khalil Mack, on IR as well. So that's going to, not on the injury report, but, will not be playing this game.
Yeah. Potentially questionable Cam Hart with his hip injury. At least he was able to participate in some fashion with that injury. So we'll see there. Deion Henley, DNP, limited DNP. So he's designated as questionable with the illness. Chris Rim, in one of his responses to somebody, said that he is still dealing with the effects of a sinus infection. And the DNPs have been kind of a result to, keep his temperature down, monitor symptoms and stuff like that. I mean, he played last week with a fever of 101. So I kind of expect him to play, but it just might look a little different this week because I don't know. To me, it's one thing to play when you're sick for like a day or two, but after you've been sick for like a week, maybe you're just a tick slower than usual. So we'll see what happens with Dayon, but I would kind of expect him to play tomorrow.
Yeah, I think he'll play too. I think he was lucky to have that interception on the first play of the game because that kind of just gets you wired.
Yeah.
In the game like that is like, oh, okay, interception, here we go. And that adrenaline will carry you for sure. Prime time, Monday Night Football, that loud stadium, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, against the Broncos, I could see them working with him a little bit less. I would expect him to play through most of it. Hopefully it's not worse. But yeah, that's a bummer that he hasn't shaken it so far and that it's continued to be a bummer all week.
Yeah. Tony Jefferson was on Chargers Weekly this week, and he brought up the fact that, like, you have all of this extra juice playing last week because it's the Raiders, it's Monday Night Football, and then you start with a turnover and then another turnover and then another turnover. So as a defense, like you're playing very well schematically and everything like that, but when you have that kind of extra juice with that game, then it's not easy to play through an illness, but you can definitely get through it a little bit easier than having again another week of dealing with the symptoms and things like that.
Yeah. So again, he'll be out there. I'm sure he'll make plays. There is kind of a personal incentive for him of like, yeah, I might be pushing for that All Pro, Pro Bowl kind of spot.
Yep.
So I think he'll be out there. But if he is, I hope he can like get through the game. And if he's not, I hope he can get better.
Yeah, I mean, he played all last season with a torn labrum. He played last week with the fever. So, and until Dayon shows that he's not able to play through these kind of things, I'm just going to kind of expect that he's going to keep doing that. All right, let's get to our coaching storyline that we are focusing on. A lot of very interesting matchups with the Chargers offense and Broncos defense. We have both chosen that side of the ball. So Tyler, what's your key focus here?
Yeah, so as a science major and like science teacher, I was trying to think of a way to describe with like some, I don't know, gravitas to explain how I feel about this chart or this Broncos linebacker group. And I settled on dog shit. So this is right now, this Broncos linebacker group is not very good in terms of coverage. And rewatching the Colts and the Broncos game, not that I sifted through the all 22 for 4 hours, but they were killing the Broncos in the flats, on crossers, out of the backfield, and just going after those linebackers. And it's to the point where, like, most fans will kind of like go to bat for their team. All I've heard about from Broncos fans, some that I work with, are just like, yeah, our linebackers stink. And when the fans of the team are telling you that they stink, that's probably who you go after. So last year, the Chargers were very successful in funneling some of the passing game through the backfield to the flats. They racked up 228 receiving yards to, the tight ends and running backs. Darius Davis, that one play. They had Vidal out of the backfield against the Broncos. They had the Haskins check down. They had that like to the flat, but then get vertical by Davis. Matlock juked somebody out against the Broncos. They were very successful that way last year as is. And so that still could be baked into their game plan as is. But then, of course, you see what the Colts did. I mean, Daniel Jones had almost 200 passing yards between 0 and or even the backfield and 9 yards. Now, I hope Herbert doesn't have to do like the dink and dunk Joe Lombardi thing, but it was very successful for them. Now, Daniel Jones also had Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren. Those things definitely do help you, and Shane Steichen calling plays. But I mean, Warren out of the backfield had a huge play, hit another screen for a big play. Jonathan Taylor had a pass in the red zone out of the backfield. It was working. And right now, Singleton and Stranad
is how I think it said, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Stranad. They've allowed 164 receiving yards through 2 games, and that's not good. So I would go after them. The numbers say do that. The film says do that. It kind of worked for you last year. And even Broncos fans are saying do that. So to me, that is the biggest coaching point. How are you attacking that? The flip side is how often is Greg Roman going to do that? But again, last year, they did kind of do that against the Broncos. So I'm curious if they push those buttons again.
Yeah. So I actually went, I saw a bunch of Broncos fans, like you mentioned, talking about the linebackers. Our Blue Wire counterparts who cover the Broncos were, just like super frustrated at watching the tape of seeing how these linebackers cover in particular. So it's definitely a key thing here. I think you can do this in a variety of ways. Obviously, if you have a tight end running back in passing situations that you trust to win one-on-one, like that can definitely be a factor. Tyler Conklin wasn't super involved in the game plan last week. Maybe this is another big game plan for him. But the other way you do this is what the Chargers have been doing to the other linebackers, which is a lot of play action concepts. And so, you mentioned play action offense as your kind of key takeaway from watching the film this week. And if you just look at pure numbers, Justin Herbert has thrown for 304 yards on play action concepts, which is by far the most in the league. He's averaging 15 yards per attempt in play action dropbacks. His passing grade is elite on PFF, 91.9. So the Chargers have been killing teams with play action, again, despite not really having a running game here. But this is another great way of taking advantage of the linebackers. You draw them up because their eyes are poor, their angles are poor. They're not willing to kind of, not play the run, and then you just throw crossers and everything like that behind them. And so the Broncos have a lot of parts of their defense that scare me, like their corners and their defensive line are very, very good. But you can definitely work the middle of the field against this team, especially in play action, because their linebackers and safeties are frankly just not great cover players.
Yeah, and I would not make this a game. Daniel Jones did have some success throwing to, Pierce and Pittman, but that's so different than what the Chargers have. For one, I wouldn't want to throw to the boundary to these corners, but two, they don't have a Pierce and Pittman on their team. Very different kinds of players that are like McConkey is very different, of course. He can be successful, but that's like you said, that's not how I'm really going after success this week.
Yeah, I agree. People have been asking about Aranda Gadsden all week, and so Mark asking about him here. I think without Will Dissly, to me, it would make sense to have both Fisk and Gadsden active. Fisk for the run blocking, and then again, kind of being able to attack the middle of the field with Gadsden and Tyler Conklin. But I think until we see the Chargers make the adjustment with the wide receiver room, they have 6 up on game days right now. Until that changes, I'm just probably going to expect that they continue to play 2 tight ends and then Scott Matlock at fullback, and he can also do some of the tight end stuff. But from a game plan perspective, if you're Greg Roman and you're like, hey, how can we kind of adjust what we've been doing to kind of attack this Broncos offense, having 2 capable pass catching tight ends instead of 6 receivers would not be the worst idea to me. Be able to kind of isolate both of those pass catching tight ends against the linebackers and safeties, I think would make some sense. So I think it's possible that Gadsden is active this week, but he's not going to be active over Tucker Fisk because Tucker Fisk is their best blocking tight end, I think, as is. And now Will Dissly is out. So if you're the Chargers, not that they're, being the ground and pound team that everybody makes them out to be, but if you head out there with Tyler Conklin, Aranda Gadsden, and Scott Matlock, that's a really, subpar blocking unit at the tight end position. So they need to play Tucker Fisk. They do not have a choice, in my opinion. But I do think there is a world where Gadsden can also be active and get 10, 15 snaps this week.
If Fisk, he won't be, but if Fisk is inactive this week, just cut him. What are we doing here? If you cannot find a role for him this week, what are we doing? Right. So, I understand wanting to get Gadsden on the field, that's fine, but not over Tucker Fisk. You clearly need him. He will be active.
Yeah.
So I know things are a little bit up in the air because some people are questionable. We don't know how things might work, who they elevate, who's active, who's not. Are we anticipating Keandre Lambert-Smith is inactive this week?
I think until that happens, I'm just going to expect that he is active.
Okay.
I think they've been very intent with the 6 receivers, and even though Trey Harris and Keandre have not played a ton, I think until we see it happen, I'm just kind of expecting that it's going to continue that way.
Okay, sounds good.
My big coaching point again is focused in on the Broncos defense, and it is Vance Joseph's just kind of tendencies as a play caller, where he's not quite as aggressive as a Brian Flores, but he's getting close there, man. He really is cranking up the blitzes quite a lot. So last season in 2024, they blitzed at a 30% rate, which was ranked 5th highest in the league. After the Vikings, there were 3 teams that were right within 0.5 percentage points, things like that. But 30% is a lot. Through 2 games, he's cranked that up to 41%, which is definitely very close to the Vikings and Brian Flores. That's second highest in the league. The Chiefs have also cranked theirs up. They're about 40%. So the Broncos are blitzing a ton. Last week, Daniel Jones, which blitzing Daniel Jones, that's very smart. This is a guy who struggles versus the blitz quite a lot.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he absolutely shredded the Broncos blitz team game. So last week he was 17 for 25, 268 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 sacks, and 0 turnover worthy plays when he was blitzed, which like that's insane. Like Daniel Jones giving you that kind of play against the blitz is crazy to me. Justin Herbert in, counteracting that. If you just take the 20 game sample size since Greg Roman has been his offensive coordinator, and this is from the guys over at the Athletic Football Show who are talking about this, Justin Herbert has generated the 3rd most EPA per play, EPA per dropback when blitzed in the league since the beginning of last season, trailing only Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So the Broncos' tendency is like blitz, 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 whereas they just got shredded when they blitzed by Daniel Jones. And now Justin Herbert, who is one of the 3 best quarterbacks at handling the blitz, is playing up against you. So I'm just very curious if this is, one of those games for Vance Joseph where he has like the two sides of himself where he's like, just crank that dial up and blitz, or let's drop 7-8 players and let's play coverage because Herbert is so good against the blitz. And so, last year it was kind of, it was very high in the week 6 matchup. And then in the other matchup, it was kind of cranked down a little bit, but it was still pretty high. And Justin Herbert was still very good against the blitz. So I'm just curious about how that goes. The Chargers have been much better against the blitz from a protection standpoint. Herbert is always good against the blitz. If you're the Broncos and you have these coverage concerns in the middle of your defense, I think it would make sense to kind of dial it down a little bit. But Vance Joseph is probably going to do Vance Joseph things.
Yeah, I wonder how teams are feeling about the Chargers pass protection through 2 weeks. Like, do they look at it and go, okay, like they actually are very much so improved, or like, I don't buy it, let's go attack that. So I'm very curious, especially because most of it, the interior in particular, has really not changed. 2 of the 3 spots, of course. We now have Trey Pipkins. So very curious what they do there. I would also be curious what the splits were last year in terms of the halves, because clearly it was a tale of 2 different halves for the Chargers last year in that second game. So I'm curious if Vance Joseph did more of one than the other in one of those halves, and if that changed how they. I don't recall at this point how that game went. I'm curious if anything changed there.
There's this thing going around. Jacob asking about Herbert being the most blitz quarterback in the league. I think this is maybe a next gen thing. We don't have access to that particular part of next gen stats, but Daniel Jones has been blitzed 47 times. Justin Herbert has been blitzed 29 according to PFF. So I don't know if next gen also charts like simulated pressures counting in that factor, and the Chargers have faced a lot of that. But PFF has Herbert as the 5th most blitz quarterback. So something to keep an eye on, I guess.
My one Google search to Reddit on a Colts Reddit says Daniel Jones 1, then Dak, then Justin Herbert at 3. So let's just say like 3 to 6, top 5.
Yeah.
Yes, I know 6 is not in 5.
Nice.
Someone would have said it.
Nice. All right. Before we continue, our audio audience is going to take a quick break, and then we are going to continue right along after this. All right. What are we most excited to watch on Sunday afternoon? I think we kind of have hinted at this, but I'm really curious to see if this is a big lad explosive opportunity for him. The Chargers receiving trio, Chris Room did a great feature on the 3 of them working together. It's been a very balanced. All 3 of them are in the top 20 in yards per route run on PFF. All 3 of them are in the top 20 in like receiving grade. All 3 of them are in the top 20 in total yards and receptions. And Ladd hasn't scored yet, but the other guys have. And, obviously Quentin Johnson and his 3 touchdowns is up there. So it's been a very balanced approach. I think that's going to change this week, in part because of the Broncos' concerns and also because the Broncos have Patrick Surtain. So who does Patrick Surtain focus on is kind of a big thing out there. The Broncos don't really have him play in the slot a ton last year or this year so far. He did play in the slot more against the Chargers last year than against any other team. And frankly, that's because, like, why would you not do that against the Chargers last year? So I think with the emergence of Quentin Johnson in his games, I think with the emergence of Keenan Allen and his return, and, you know, kind of the split between how Ladd is playing outside versus the slot, I think this is a game where Patrick Surtain maybe sticks on one side, and that allows Ladd to avoid Patrick Surtain. And just the combination of that, the combination of the poor linebacker play, the play action, I think this could be Ladd's game as opposed to the balanced approach. And I think we could see Ladd, you know, go for like 120 and one kind of deal. Like, I think this really has an explosive opportunity potential for Ladd McConkey this week.
I completely agree with you there. Who would have thought that we could legitimately, truly, without laughing, say that Quentin Johnson might open up Ladd McConkey this week? because Patrick Surtain is going to choose, and they're going to choose to go after Johnston. But, like, yeah, you watched last couple of weeks, he's on a bit of a tear. Not that he's a true wide receiver one, but he's putting up good numbers, and he's their leading receiver, I believe.
Dude, he's on pace for, it's 2 games. He's on pace for like 1,200 yards. Like, it's,
yeah.
If Quentin Johnson goes over 1,000 this year, it's going to be a very interesting
quiet
discourse.
Social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Social media will be very quiet. Hopefully he at least catches things in the postseason too. But yeah, would love to be, of course, like with the way things are working, you know, we wanted Herbert to have all the answers and more answers. So QJ, Keenan, Conklin, whoever it ends up being, great. We wanted it to not just have to be McConkey. But as you said, it is Ladd McConkey. It is a particular week where you could focus in on him. And they've done that. There have definitely been some weeks where they go, that's clearly where we need to go. Let's go to McConkey. Again, that was more last year because that was it. And this year now, I think because they have more options, it actually affords them the opportunity to focus on McConkey more.
Yeah, I think in the moments where they've needed, like, let's get the offense going play, it's almost always to Ladd. You know, they've used Keenan a ton on 3rd and 4th downs, which makes sense given the connection between the quarterback and him. But, you know, to me, it's not a coincidence that you have your first couple of drives, you don't target Ladd, you have the field goal, which, you know, off the interception, and then you have a 3 and out. And then your first play on that 3rd drive is a big play action, you know, en route to Ladd McConkey, 1st down, 16-yard gain. And then they went down and scored a touchdown. So anytime they need to get into a rhythm, it's been Ladd. And Ladd's the one who kind of starts things going. He's been kind of the engine of the receiving room. And then the other guys just complement around him. So, you know, we're going to see some games where it's balanced between the 3. You know, Trey Harris has been in and on the action a little bit. But this matchup in particular, to me, feels like a very big Ladd McConkey game.
Yeah, and I would love that. I'm totally, if they're 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, and spreading the ball around, fine. But I want to see that classic McConkey $150 game. But I'm not attending any weddings this week, so it will not happen.
I mean, you did also see him go off for 192 in Houston. So
that's true. I got all of my priors from McConkey in, and everything else was terrible. But at least I got that.
Yeah, there were a couple opportunities on Monday night that Herbert just kind of, you know, focused on the first read, and Ladd as the second read was like open. So I think a big game is coming for Ladd. What is the thing that you are most excited to watch?
I'm just obsessed with Jesse Minter in this defense right now, and I am very curious, especially if Henley's a bit limited too. What is Minter doing to crank up pressure this week? Because Bo Nix has been awful against pressure this last couple of weeks. He's the 3rd highest turnover worthy play rate versus pressure, and the worst passer rating in the NFL versus pressure through 2 weeks. So what's the plan? I'm very excited to see what Minter does here because, you know, he's talked before in like March of last year. Wow, I'm excited I get Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Well, this year, no Joey Bosa, and now no Khalil Mack. And again, we'll see how much Deion Henley, his other like champion of blitzing and QB spy and whatnot, how much can he play? And so I'm very curious now with limited options, like slowly but surely peeling things back from what Minter has to work with. What does he do? I'm very curious if this ends up being the Derwin James thing, because they kind of expressed that a little bit the last couple of weeks, but not as much. Is it more him? Are we seeing more like a Tarheeb still blitz here out of nowhere? I'm very curious beyond just like go rush and go do the thing. What is Minter doing specifically to get that pressure? Because goodness, Bo Nix has been terrible under pressure.
Yeah, this is kind of tying into the thing that is keeping me up at night. But in regards to efficiency when blitzed, Bo Nix currently has the second worst passing grade of any starting quarterback when blitzed, only behind JJ McCarthy. So it's a sub 40 passing grade when blitzed. And that is not great considering he's been blitzed on 25 of his dropbacks. So, the Colts defense and the Chargers defense, they're not like Lou Anarumo and Jesse Minter have never really crossed paths, but they do a lot of similar fire zone concepts and similar blitz concepts where, we're going to show cover zero. We'll drop the defensive tackles, which both teams have done. And, they get, some interceptions here and there, but it's a difficult thing for a young player to sift through, especially one who, threw a million screens at Oregon and has never really been able to kind of see that. And he still is throwing a lot of screens this year. So the Chargers cranking up the dial from a blitz perspective to me is very necessary in this matchup, even if they had Khalil Mack. But without Khalil Mack, this is definitely something that I want to see from Minter, where, they're usually at like a 25% blitz rate. I think that should be like 35% this week because of who you don't have and because who is at quarterback across from you.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, boys. Yeah. So, okay. Very curious how this goes. On the flip side, of course, like who's rushing? Is it Dupree and Thule, and then it's Kennard and Murphy? Or are we having Farrell elevated over Murphy? Or not Murphy, Kennard?
So Farrell was not elevated. The only practice squad was Imani Johnson. So that ship has sailed. So Kyle Kennard is going to play. I've been told that his role is going to be exclusively on passing downs. They rightfully are going to have other options on the edge on rundowns. But I think the Chargers are just going to play their main three a lot more. Like, I think, they like to kind of rotate, the hockey lineup in and out. They don't usually have, their two starters and one will go out and the sub will come in kind of thing. They like to say, here's our two starters. Okay, two backups come in, and they just like swap back and forth. I don't think that can continue this week, whether it's Kyle Kennard or Justin Eboigbe, who is, I think, going to play some run defense snaps on the edge this week. I just think that you probably got to play Bud Dupree a lot, and you got to hope that he can kind of have a vintage Bud Dupree performance this week.
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll see what happens there. What is keeping me up at night in particular is that Broncos offensive line. They are currently first in pass blocking efficiency rating on PFF and first in pass block win rate on ESPN, and they are 10th in run block win rate on ESPN. So the way to beat the Broncos offense is what you just talked about, and crank that pressure dial up, blitz a lot, and keep Bo Nix off schedule. If you minus Khalil Mack are going to sit back and rush 4 and give the Broncos running game going and things like that because of their offensive line, your defense could be in for a bit of a tough one this week. So we saw both sides of that coin last year, where the first game they absolutely just like erased the Broncos offense in the first 3 quarters, and then Bo Nix started to scramble a ton. And then in the second game, they kind of moved the ball at will against the Chargers, and it was a lot of that. They just couldn't get pressure on Bo Nix. They couldn't stop the run. So what version of the Chargers defensive front do we get? Do we get one that is playing really well and inspired without Khalil Mack, or do we get one that is, man, they missed Khalil Mack today? I think is definitely keeping me up about at night about this matchup.
Yeah, I think we'll all focus on Thule, of course, as being like the last man standing and how's he going to perform. To me, I'm just hoping this is an interior defensive line performance. They've answered the call at every turn so far, so I'm not concerned about like their overall play. But can they just crank it up one more notch to make Bo Nix move, make him a bit more uncomfortable? Yeah, this is definitely one that's keeping me up for sure. The Broncos, through most metrics or like the composite metrics, through all their stuff for offensive line, they are the best protection unit in the NFL this year. Chargers are, I think, like 8th or something like that. But the Broncos in most instances are like by far and away the best group so far, which is kind of interesting. They're that good, but Bo Nix is that bad under pressure. But anyway, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that's very much a Bo Nix stat. Like I think, there were a lot of people hoping that he would, kind of take that next step. But it's hard to teach people to suddenly be good against pressure. Like it's
Mm,
really difficult to coach out of you. And Herbert has done that. Like Herbert was not good under pressure at Oregon, and he's great under pressure now. But Bo Nix was very bad under pressure in college. He was very bad under pressure last year, and that has continued. So, hopefully the Chargers are able to get to him a few times tomorrow.
yeah, hope so. What's keeping me up at night? There are definitely some ways we could go. For me, as a Chargers fan, this is potentially a classic revenge game. And for me, that is J.K. Dobbins' revenge game. Right now, he's 11th in rushing yards over expectation per attempt. He's, 10th in yards per attempt. He's faced the third most stacked boxes in the NFL so far this year. The fact that he even is 10th in yards per attempt is pretty good. He's 7th in runs of 10 plus. He's 8th in breakaway rate. And he's had this game circled. I know he's kept it professional. I understand why he would be a little bit frustrated about not being brought back with the Chargers.
Yeah.
It was kind of an odd situation too, but I'm sure he's had this one circled, and he's looked not amazing, not a number one back, but we know who J.K. Dobbins is. We know he can break one, and I'm a little worried about him this week, especially if the run defense isn't as strong. You don't have Khalil Mack out there. We'll see about Henley. We saw last week there were some missed tackles for sure by Alohi, by Duro, and by Tony Jefferson. I think the whole team had 13 missed tackles last week. You can't do that. In addition to that, RJ Harvey, unfortunately, leads the NFL right now in yards after contact per attempt and is second in breakaway rate. So there's a scary amount of, who cares if Bo Nix is under pressure or how good he is? Let's just hand it to these guys. And let's see if the Chargers can stop us shorthanded, no Mac, limited Henley, and all your issues last week. Let's go. Here you go. J.K. Dobbins, you want your revenge game? How about it? So I'm a little worried about this being a revenge game.
Yeah, I think the Broncos, unfortunately, approached their run game woes, from last season very effectively because they blocked very well last season as well, and that's been the case this year so far too. And so, what's kind of your solution there? Let's get two really highly explosive running backs and be able to create these opportunities to have shorter drives, because last year the Broncos thing was very much we're going to dink and dunk, we're going to screen, and we're going to run for 4 yards, right at 4 yards. And, it was a very difficult way. It's a very difficult way to live, playing in this NFL. So J.K. Dobbins, RJ Harvey, two very explosive running backs. The Chargers safeties and linebackers did miss quite a bit against Ashton Jeanty last week. And, apparently Ashton Jeanty doesn't have the it factor, according to Mr. Ryan Clark. But that's a different kind of person to tackle. No shade to J.K. Dobbins or Harvey, but they're more elusive and not as big as Ashton Jeanty. So this is definitely a game where the safeties have to be, wrapping up and making sure that they are on their P's and Q's from that standpoint.
Yeah, Ashton Jeanty doesn't have the it factor. All right. To be completely honest, actually watching the games against the Patriots and the Chargers, Jeanty's looked pretty good. It's just everything else sucks around him.
Yes.
So at some point he's going to need a little bit more help and not face Jesse Minter, and he'll be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Shinjinti is good, man. He's hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on half of his run attempts. So it's tough to live that way.
Right.
All right. X Factor of the week. Tyler, who you got?
Troy Dye. I did not think he had a great game last week. He had a very good game the first week. And I don't know as of today, as of 2:50 on a Saturday. It's very possible he's LB1 out there. At minimum, he may just play the most snaps. And in a game with those, if you're trying to spy Bo Nix, or if you're blitzing Bo Nix, or if you're trying to stop these running backs, that's a lot of linebackers. That's a lot of Troy Dye. So to me, how he performs after, he had some good moments last week, but some not so great moments last week. How he performs is a big X factor for me this week.
Yeah, I think the Raiders did a pretty good job of isolating him in the box in terms of trying to make him be the one to, take on the pulling guard and things like that, and be able to, handle the double teams. And so I expect Troy Dye to respond in kind. I think he's going to play well this week. He did have a bit of a rough one. So yeah. I think my X factor, I guess you could include Troy Dye here as well, but how do you go about the Bo Nix scramble effect is an X factor for me, where he's a little down there in terms of like scramble yards. I think he's only got like 33 scramble yards on the season, but it is kind of his break glass in case of emergency, style, where he'll just take off and go. And even if he is not necessarily rushing the football, when he gets out of the pocket, I think that could be, how the Broncos might best move their passing game. Just given, I think this is kind of a bit of an advantage for the Chargers corners this week. Not that I'm like, this is not a horrible receiving core for the Broncos, but I think this is a game where the Chargers corner should be able to play well. And so Bo Nix scrambling, I think, is definitely something to watch, where, can Dayon spy and have those moments again that he's been doing, and same with Troy Dye there. So making sure that they're not limiting the bone, or making sure they're not getting beat by Bo Nix's legs, I think is a key thing this week.
Yeah, very curious if we see a little more Marlowe wax. If you have to take Henley out, sliding in someone with a 99th percentile 10-yard split, we've seen be very successful as a rusher in college and in the preseason. Is that somebody they could turn to if Henley can't put it together? So yeah, linebackers across the board, I understand why they'd be X factors here.
Yeah, Jacob pointing out on a different podcast, the Chargers have been susceptible to scrambles. That's been the case. Even Geno had a couple of them. To be fair, that's the only way that the Kansas City Chiefs are moving the football right now is Patrick Mahomes scrambles. So I wouldn't put too much stock in the bottom five aspect of that just quite yet, but they can give up a scramble or two a game because of the way they play. That is very fair.
Yeah, occasionally it can be a backbreaker. We've seen far worse versions of this against the Chargers, but if they're going, okay, you can do whatever for 20 yards down the field, or scramble for 5, scramble for 7, or whatever it is, they'll take the shorter stuff, make you earn it, make Bo Nix earn it, make Geno Smith earn it, make the Chiefs earn it, and they didn't.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get to our game picks here. I've gone first the last 2 weeks. Do you want me to go first again?
Oh, I went first last week because I knew they were beating the Raiders. I went first. I was 100% sure.
That's right.
Well, I'll go first again if you want me to, because you know what? I'm so confident. I'm going to be at this game, which decreases their win percentage by about 30, but I still think they can. I still think they can win this one. Again, for those who are like, you're negative, we picked the Chargers to win 3 weeks in a row, or at least I have. I don't know if Steven will, but I think it'll be a little uglier. I think it'll be a bit messier. Or it's 45-44, but I think this is like 20-17 for me. I think this just kind of is going to shape up to be kind of ugly, 20-17.
Nice. I think I am more nervous about this game than the general fan base is. You have gotten some heat for saying like, man, I'm nervous about the Broncos. Like, granted, Bo Nix has not started super well. But the lack of Khalil Mack this week is definitely giving me some pause. I think the Chargers offense is the better unit right now. And I think the Chargers defense is so sound that I'm going to pick the Chargers. But I think this is a very close game. I think this is, contested to the very end, and the Chargers haven't really been pushed. I think that the way the Broncos will push them, like, I think this is not going to be, a super high scoring game, but the Broncos offense can definitely give you some pause in this one. And so I think I'm going to go a little bit more offense heavy than you are, just because I think the Broncos linebackers and safeties are going to allow the Chargers to be able to move the football. And I think the Chargers not having Khalil Mack is going to allow the Broncos to move the football. And so I'm going to go a little more similar to the second game and say 26-23 Chargers win. But I'm seeing a lot of like these comments from Wildcats, and I know like we're all fans, we're trying to have fun, but like 35-10, 27-17, 27-13. I just think the Broncos are a lot better than Chargers fans are making them out to be, and have enough in the areas that give me some pause for this matchup in particular. And I think it's just it's going to be a close game, and I think the Broncos will do enough to give the Chargers a bit of a scare.
I think so too. I think the quarterback situation is obviously the big one for the Broncos here, and that's the entire difference, I think, in this game. But you look at what the Chiefs have had at their disposal, what the Raiders have had at their disposal. I mean, this offensive line, and again, it's not like an elite group, but Sutton, Franklin, Mims, Harvey, Pat Bryant, I don't know how much he's going to play. But then on the defensive side, with the last couple of weeks, it's been that one player, and then that's kind of it. Zach Allen, DJ Jones, Franklin Myers, Cooper, like all these guys, they're just, in terms of weapons, there's far more than the Chiefs had. And in terms of defenders, there's far more overall than what the Chiefs or the Raiders have had. So this is the most talented overall team that they have faced the last couple of weeks. I know there's a couple of injuries for the Broncos, same for the Chargers. So yeah, I am most nervous about this game. And yes, I am attending it, which makes me very nervous.
Yeah. The main concern for me is just like we have not really seen the Chargers defensive line get truly tested. The Chiefs have two really great players at center and right guard, but their tackle play was suspect. Their left guard play was suspect. The entire Raiders offensive line, except for Colton Miller is suspect. The Broncos offensive line has zero weaknesses. They have 5 really good players, and they have 1 star in Quinn Miners. And so it's just, this is a matchup that makes me a little nervous without Khalil Mack. If Khalil Mack were playing, maybe I could do, kind of like a 26-20 thing. But I just think the Broncos have enough on offense, even with Bo Nix not playing his best, to make me a little bit more concerned than most Chargers fans seem to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even though I think he'll play, does your pick change if Henley doesn't play?
If Henley does not play, I would move it to a loss. Like Deion, if Deion is not out there and you're doing Troy Dye and Marlo Wax, I'm a little more nervous. And I think that creates some issues. So if Deion does not play, I would move it to the opposite score. Broncos win 26-23.
Yeah. Thomas Martinez saying the Colts beating the Broncos is throwing everyone's perception off. The battlefield's going to be brutal. I think other than Bo Nix, I think the perception is definitely being thrown off. I guess maybe even with Bo Nix, because they put up 24 points. But yeah, it's a divisional game. Like I was ready to attend. No, they still are headed that direction. But the Dolphins' funeral on Thursday, and they put up a heck of a fight until Tua finally turned the ball over at the end there. But they took it to the Bills, and I could see that exact same thing happening to the Chargers this week.
Yeah, the Daniel Jones heater game is really thinking it's making a lot of Chargers fans think that the Broncos defense is really bad, and like they have some weaknesses. But that defensive line is nasty. They go like 12 guys deep, and the Broncos corners are awesome. Like they have the best trio of corners in the league, in my opinion. So it's a tough defense that I think over the course of the season will bear out to being maybe not the best defense, but maybe the 4th or 5th best defense like they were last year. So I don't know, man. AFC West games are generally always very hotly contested. And if your Chargers defense is without Khalil, Denzel Perryman, Elijah Molden, and Deion Henley, and potentially Cam Hart, that would give me some pause.
Yeah, if this skews very negative in terms of the Chargers injuries, I may still be a homer. I think the Chargers to win, but I'll feel worse about it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, Tyler, any other final thoughts on this game before we get to some super chats and questions?
I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
There we go.
After these super chats.
After the super chats. Athir kicking us off says, first question, will Coach Harbaugh be at USC game when Michigan comes to LA? Bolts will play the Commanders at home Sunday. Chargers win. Is Michigan at USC next week?
The Commanders game is the following week.
Oh, the following week.
But
yes.
Michigan, USC, that is October 11th. So yes. Is that a Saturday? I don't know if October 11th is a Saturday, but if it is, I guess probably.
I think October 11th would be the following game, not the Commanders game.
Oh yeah,
right.
Makes a lot of theory.
But he does say that the Chargers win 27-13. So he, like a lot of the chat, he's expecting a big performance for tomorrow.
Would be nice.
Leah Smith in the chat says, I'm stoked to catch another live. Bolt up. She was joking earlier that she gets to watch it because, she's an East Coast Chargers fan, and we're here at 2 p.m. on a Saturday.
Yes. Thank you for hanging in there and watching.
Yeah. Luis Godfrey says, this is fellow Utah alum after that thumping by Texas Tech. The Chargers lose tomorrow. I'm calling in sick on Monday. Love you guys. Yeah, it was not fun. I don't know if I would qualify it as a thumping. Like I know the box score says that they lost 27-10, but it was a 1-score game until like midway through the fourth quarter. So Utah's offense just does not look very good right now after looking great for the first 3 weeks. So credit to Texas Tech, but
yeah,
I think they will see each other again.
Cool.
Ray Febres. I'm sorry, man. You got to let me know how to pronounce that last name. Bolt up, guys. Keep up the great work. 3-0. Let's go.
Thank you. I don't recall seeing his name in here before, so thank you, Ray, for that one. It's very kind of you to send in the super chat. 3-0 would be amazing. 3-0 with the division sweep, heading into the Giants and the Commanders. Yeah, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, being 3-0 already, and like having your worst case scenario in the division being 3-3, like that's a huge advantage. And I think they will beat the Raiders at home, and I think they will, at least win one of the other games. So being 3-0 in the division to start is a massive opportunity, especially with all of these teams, potentially being 1-2, and you're 3-0. That would be a great way to start.
Oh yeah, would be amazing.
Daddy, don't pull out. I apologize. I've never had a beer in my entire life, so I cannot answer that question.
At the one party I went to where I met my wife, they had a bunch of Heineken. So I'll say Heineken, even though it's probably not a good answer. But I remember my wife and I drinking a Heineken when we first met.
There you go. Thomas just informed me that Texas Tech actually scored again.
Thanks, Thomas.
So Devin Dampier threw an interception, and then I hopped on our Peloton bike. I was like, I'm over it. And I assumed with like 2 minutes left that Texas Tech would just kind of take a knee, and apparently they scored again. So that's cool. Way to rub it in, Texas Tech, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll go with the root beer or ginger beer, like the Bundaberg or whatever it is. Ginger beer is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I'm not a huge root beer guy.
Me neither.
Honestly, I do drink soda. Yes, that is our
coffee
alcohol, I guess, of choice. I will drink almost any Mountain Dew product. So the watermelon cooler Mountain Dew is like absolutely just gas to me. So I love Mountain Dew. When I want a soda that is not a diet soda, Mountain Dew is what I go to.
Yeah. My entire middle school to high school was Mountain Dew Voltage. That blue one is just like, that's what I grew up on. It's my favorite one.
Yeah, that's a great one. The Baja Blast is undefeated.
Sure.
I love that you can actually get Baja Blast canned at the store now instead of only at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
So the red one I'm not crazy about, but yeah, Mountain Dew, Diet Coke for me. I'm definitely more of a Diet Coke than a Diet Pepsi. Code Red, yeah, that's the one that one's called. I'm not a huge Code Red fan.
Yeah, I get you. I used to be a big Cactus Cooler guy.
Cactus Cooler, fantastic. Athir says that the Chargers are at Miami that week, so unfortunately, Jim Harbaugh will not be at the Coliseum that day.
No, he'll be attending Mike McDaniel's funeral. The Dolphins funeral, let me say. Sorry, that sounds very personal. The Dolphins funeral.
That might happen sooner. I don't know, man. What's
the
their schedule?
Yeah. Do they play in a foreign country? Because they're firing after that game.
Oh, they play the Jets and the Panthers the next 2 weeks.
They're good.
They're
good. There might be. That's good. Might be some life with the Dolphins before then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Fun little stat from Jacob Arnall here says teams going 3-0 division games to start year in NFL history has happened 11 times, and 5 of those teams have made the Super Bowl.
Wow. I love it. I started the year. Wait. Oh, it's happened 11 times. 5 made the Super Bowl. Gotcha. I wonder who they are. Is it the Patriots? Like 5 times?
I think this is specifically saying like
the first
three games, not just starting 3-0.
Wow. Well, good stat poll. I would be very curious to know who the other teams are.
Yeah, because everybody that has been like talking about this game is like, oh man, it's super rare that this is even happening from a scheduling standpoint in general. So,
Thanks a lot, by the way.
Yeah, the Chargers schedule, particularly as like the traveling bit of this, is insane to me. So, Ken Jack, who's a Chargers fan who works for Barstool Sports, is pointing this out that after the Chargers travel to the Giants next week, they will have already traveled more miles than like 7 teams will travel for the entire season. And the Chargers also have a trip to Miami, a trip to Jacksonville. Like it's insane. I know that you don't necessarily, bake in the Brazil game into how you're, because the NFL schedules are set, years in advance based off of divisions and things like that. But the Chargers already travel a ton. It was going to be a heavy travel this year anyway. And then they're like, Brazil. And it's like, well, can we not? Can you make a team who doesn't ever travel go to Brazil?
Yeah. Yeah. The curse of living on the West Coast, right?
Yeah. Like I think the Bengals are traveling less than 10,000 miles in general this year.
Well, it hasn't helped their team so far.
No.
Well, they're 2-0. I apologize. They're actually 2-0. So,
yeah. Kevin Guzman, I don't know if there was a question you wanted to ask here, but we appreciate the super chat regardless.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
I think that is our last one.
I think so.
We'll
Kevin, if you've got a question, ask away.
Yeah. 8,000 miles for the Bengals. That's crazy, dude. That's insane.
That's their whole season?
Yeah.
I guess because they are about smack dab in the middle.
Yeah. Let me look that up now.
Actually, that's how many miles Joe Burrow's had to run behind this offensive line so far.
Nice. So yeah, they open the season at the Browns. Easy trip. They're at the Vikings this week. They do travel to Denver. So that is not like a super long trip. They play at Green Bay. They play at Pittsburgh, at Baltimore, at Buffalo. So their longest road trip is to Denver, which is probably like what, a 2.5 hour flight.
Sure.
Ohio to Colorado. That can't be that long of a trip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, looks like Kevin is either out of the chat or does not have a question. So
I do want to finish with this one. Who's going to be mic'd up this week? Who has been mic'd up?
Derwin was the first week.
Derwin was definitely one of them. I believe it was the first week. I don't recall who the second week was.
Keenan this week?
If Keenan has not been mic'd up, my money's on Keenan.
I'm sure people in the chat know this. I don't think I watched the mic'd up this week.
No, I haven't watched. Wait, Derwin. It's been Derwin and Keenan so far.
So Keenan was this week. Where's the mic'd up from? Derwin was the first week. So Keenan and Derwin. I would say Dayon, but he's sick. Like, I don't know if you want to mic up a player who's sick.
That's the whole mic up.
Yeah, Thule's a good one to mic up. He talks a lot of trash, so that would be fun. Which is so funny to me that Thule talks trash, but
like truly one of the nicest people on the team.
Yeah.
I don't know.
People saying Joe Alt. I don't think Joe Alt says any words while he plays football.
Go to sleep. That's it.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a defensive player if they alternate. I'm very curious how the Chargers pick who's mic'd up. Like, do you not set someone up to fail ahead of a week?
I don't know. They mic'd up Junior Colson in the preseason. That wasn't great.
Loud would be cool.
That would be fun. Yeah, we didn't talk a whole lot about Joe Alt this week, but it's a very interesting matchup for narrative's sake, where a lot of people who think Nick Bonito is like Myles Garrett tier, and he did nothing against Rashawn Slater last year. And so I think that's going to be a similar result with Joe Alt, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky too, because if Joe Alt struggles a bit more than Slater did last year, well, then everyone's going, oh, well, Joe Alt's not as good as Slater. Like, what, whatever.
Yeah.
So curious how much he's even lined up there. He'll give it a shot. Nick Bino gave it a shot last year, and Slater, that was some pretty good tape.
Yeah. I tweeted this out yesterday or maybe the day before, but Joe Alt has played 19 NFL games. He has allowed 2 pressures or less in every single game except 2 of them. And even in those 2 against Myles Garrett and Will Anderson, it was only 4. So you've got to be like top tier to make Joe Alt struggle a little bit. And I just don't know. Like Nick Bonino is really good. I'm not trying to be like Nick Bonino sucks, but I don't know if he's the kind of edge rusher that will give Joe trouble one-on-one. Like I'm sure he'll have some loops and some stunts and things like that and get some pressures, but when they're one-on-one, I expect Joe Alt to handle business this week.
Yeah, there's a smaller, quicker, bendier factor that maybe last year could have been problematic, but this year it's just like the play. There's one rep against Malcolm Kuntz last week where it's just like 2-hand strike, other right-hand strike to turn him around, hit him again. It's like he's just playing with his food out there. It's unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, Malcolm Kuntz is like a really good player, and he just had no chance against Joe, man.
No shot. No shot.
Like there are going to be some times throughout the year where somebody might beat Joe off the snap or something like that. Like no offensive tackle is perfect, but the bar has been set. If you are not an elite edge rusher, you're just not going to get past Joe Alt. Like it's just that's the way it is. ET44A asking about how he did against the Broncos last year. That's all against Jonathan Cooper. So the Broncos edge rushers do not change sides. So Cooper is going to be against Trey Pipkins, and Bonito will be against Alt. And last year, Alt against Cooper was like 2 pressures in the 2 games combined. So yeah, Joe Alt's really good, you guys.
Pretty good. Yeah, a whopping 3 pressures allowed. That is crazy that most of his games are 1 pressure.
Yeah,
3 pressures.
But this is a really important like narrative game for him, where if we're going to try and do the whole protector of the year thing, like him shutting out Nick Bonito, and then Nick Bonito crushing it against everybody else, that's a big deal for him.
What'd you make of Duke Manyweather saying Slater's still a left tackle when he comes back? / is that just because it's his client?
I think that's part of it. I was asked is like if Slater returns and he's peak Slater, like what do you do then? Because I think you and I are at least acknowledging that we're going to see, him return late into the summer or potentially be not the same version of himself. But if he is the same player as previously, my personal preference would be that you put him back at left tackle and then Joe goes back to right. But I think the Chargers are going to look at the situation and just be like, we want our most sure thing at left tackle, and that's Joe. Like that's Joe, and Rashawn can still move to the right side and be a great player. So I think that's what the team would do, but that's a long ways away.
Got a ways to go, like you said.
Yeah, and as Jorge says, you don't want to just keep moving Joe left and right when Rashawn is injured or things like that. Like you want him to kind of settle in, and I think that's what you want to do with Joe. Athir with a last minute super chat here. Actually, I think we have another one that we missed too, but Athir wants to know or wants to make a bet with you that the Chargers are a threat to the Bills.
Well, you can't make a bet that they're a threat to beat the Bills. That's if they even play this year, will they win or will they not? As of right now, I will not say the Chargers will beat the Bills. Just they're a bit more been there, done that. They will probably host the Chargers. And unfortunately, Josh Allen is the better quarterback. But we'll see. Their corners are rough. The Bills can't add a corner to save their lives.
No, and as much as I want Cole Bishop to be a thing, he's having a tough time at safety, and Taylor Rapp's having a tough time. They're playing 3 linebacker sets a little bit more this year, but they can't stop the run. Like they just do not have the size to really stop the run. And when they get to the playoffs, like that's going to be an issue. And depending on how the Chiefs and the Chargers run games kind of figure things out, we'll see. But like if they have to play against the Ravens in Baltimore, Derrick Henry's going to run for like 160 yards against them again, which has happened every other time that they've played. So Can they be a threat to the Bills in terms of like seeding and making it interesting at the end? Yeah, I think that's possible. If I had to pick right now a game in January in Buffalo, I would choose the Bills to win, unfortunately.
Yeah. Need the Chargers to beat, I don't know, who's the next best actual good team on their schedule that's not the Broncos?
The Commanders. But Jaden Daniels is hurt right
EBD.
now, so.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Look, I saw Easton Stick and Gift Smith take it to the Bills on primetime, so anything is possible.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited about where the Chargers are at. I don't want that to seem like I'm not, because I think they can be much better than what I was expecting heading into the season, especially after the Rashawn Slater injury. But I need more information about playing a great defensive line. What does that look like? Playing a great offensive line. What does that look like? I think we need more information to properly sort out where the Chargers are at. I think it's great that some of these other, big media members are like, yeah, the Chargers are the most complete team in the AFC, and the Chargers are the biggest threat to, whoever. I just think we need more information. I think right now we can say that they are 2-0, off to a great start. And if they're 3-0, if they come start 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, obviously we'll have a lot more information at that time. But for me, I just trust what we know. And the Bills have been, on the verge of getting to the Super Bowl for like 4 or 5 years now. And same thing for the Ravens. Like, those are two great teams that have proven it for like the last 4 or 5 years. So I just want more information before I like actually figure out where the Chargers are at. But right now, they're a playoff team. I just don't know where in the playoff pecking order that puts them.
Yeah, they're definitely ahead of the players I would maybe group them in with to start the year. So like now over the Bengals, over the Texans, clearly over the Dolphins, I would assume over the Colts. Yeah. So like they're clearly ahead of Pittsburgh, those guys. I just don't think, and ahead of the Chiefs now, I would say. But Ravens and Bills, I think will sit atop that for now.
Yeah.
If they go and beat the Eagles, granted that's not on the road, but if they beat the Eagles, I will have a very different postseason outlook, I think, because that is a great team.
Yeah, and they're going to have a lot more opportunities to really show up and show out against good teams later in the season. Right now, I would put them atop the second tier in the AFC, which is great.
Yeah.
That's higher than I thought I would have them previously. But I just think the Bills and the Ravens, roster wise, are, and the home field advantages that they have are just so significant that, to me, until proven otherwise, I'm going to put those two teams at the top of the AFC right now.
Yeah, and that's, I think, fair. I think we can all pretty much agree on that one. The theory might say differently, but I think we can agree. Yeah, but then the rest of their schedule, I don't know what New York is. Washington, where's Daniels at? Miami's a mess. The Colts are a whole different team. Minnesota, McCarthy's back like the week before. And they also have, who else went on IR? Well, I know Darrisaw's injured.
Darrisaw's injured, but he should be back soon.
Somebody else just went on. Is it Hawkinson? No. Who is it? I don't remember. Anyway, Tennessee's whatever. Pittsburgh's kind of whatever. Jacksonville, who knows? They just beat the Raiders. I mean, this schedule is a lot easier than I thought it was heading into the year.
Yeah.
It's a little less dangerous, I think, at least.
Yeah, I was looking at the Bills' schedule earlier. ESPN FBI gives them a greater than 60% chance of winning all of their next few games until they play the Eagles in December. So
yeah,
the Bills. There's a very real chance the Bills are like 15-2 and have the 1 seed wrapped up by like the first week of December.
Yeah, their division's not really doing much.
No, it's not very good. It's not very good.
No, not at all.
Must be nice. Must be nice.
Right.
Our last super chat from Darkstar here wants to know if we have any bold predictions for this game.
This is the Hampton game. That's the bold prediction, that this ends up being the hello.
Yeah. He's had some really good runs. It's just like not having a ton of volume and opportunities. But my first thought here was actually that this could be like a 3 catches, 50-yard kind of Najee Harris performance.
I don't mind that at all. I same idea, Hampton with catching passes, but yeah.
Either would be great. I do think we see more of Najee Harris this week. given how the end of the last game went.
Yeah. So if you guys are on Prize Picks, I think his rushing yards are like 26 maybe right now. Maybe it's a little more. I could be wrong. But you might have one more week for those Najee Harris numbers to be a bit under what you think.
Yeah, I agree. All right, you guys, that is going to do it for us today. Appreciate you all for taking some time out on your Saturday afternoon. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll be live tomorrow after Sunday Night Football because Tyler will be at the game. So hopefully a fun post-game recap despite not being right after the fact. So as always, make sure to leave a like, rating, review, comment. All that good stuff does continue to help grow our show. And that is going to do it for us over at the Guilty as Charged podcast today. See you tomorrow. Bolt up.